I'm Josh and I'm 27. I always thought things with my family were a bit messy but fixable until last year. You know how families can be, right? Loads of hidden drama, everybody putting on a happy face at family get-togethers while secretly nursing a bunch of little hurts. I just figured, well, that's how it is. We were a bunch of crazies, but we were still family. I kept telling myself that over and over. I kept believing it until my mom snapped at me on the phone. Don't even think about coming to the wedding. We don't want you messing things up for Emma. Emma, my younger sister, the favorite, always getting all the attention. If she even coughed in public, my folks acted like she'd found a cure for anything. Meanwhile, I could work my butt off during college, send them money to help out, and still get a text from my mom about how I should try to be more like Emma. I was used to it. I'd brush it off, smile through it. But something about her voice that day, just so cold and final, broke something in me that I didn't even know was holding me together. The wedding had been this huge thing that was planned for months. It was supposed to be a big deal at a fancy place with pretty lights and nice gardens, the kind of thing my family would brag about to anyone and everyone. They'd basically assigned me the role of bankroller for years without even asking. It was always, just a little help, Mom would say, shoving those vendor bills in my face. They made my stomach flip. At first, I just went along with it. I'd always been the one to fix things when money was tight. When I finally got a decent IT job last year, they saw their chance to clean up. So I paid for the wedding hall, I paid for the food, and I even paid the deposit for Emma's fancy photographer. The guy charged more for a day than some people make all month. I didn't say a word, not one. But as the wedding got closer, I started seeing things. Little things left out, like invitations without a +1 for me. I was excluded from group chats. Then there was Mom and my sister giggling over the seating chart at dinner, talking about sticking the troublemakers in the back and giving me these sneaky little looks. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was imagining things, until one day I stopped by my parents to drop off a check for the flowers. Emma was there at the kitchen table on her laptop with Mom practically breathing down her neck. They were working on that seating chart again. When I walked in, the laptop screen went dark super quick. I wasn't supposed to see, but I caught a glimpse. A tiny table all the way in the back near the restrooms. And there it was, a single place card with my name. No +1, no fancy decorations, nothing. I was practically glued to the wall, nowhere near the dance floor. That night I just sat on the couch, staring into space. I replayed everything I'd done for them, all the times I went out of my way. The money I sent when Dad's work dried up, the loans I guaranteed, the weekends I drove for hours to fix their internet, babysit Emma's cat, help Dad move whatever they needed, I did it. And yet they treated me like I wasn't even there, like I was totally invisible. The next day my mom called. "Don't even think about coming to the wedding," she barked. "We don't need you ruining Emma's big day." No second thoughts, no hint of sadness, just a blunt order like she was getting rid of a bug. I didn't know what she wanted me to do. Maybe she thought I'd beg, plead for forgiveness for just being me. But I didn't. I just smiled, opened my laptop, went to their fancy photographer's website and canceled the payment. Then I sent her a screenshot of the cancellation. No explanation, just the image. She didn't call back, didn't even text. The silence was overwhelming, but it wasn't the painful thing I'd expected. It felt freeing, like I'd finally dropped a huge weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying. And that, honestly, was just the start of it all. See, my mom had no clue, none of them did, that a week before all this exploded, I'd looked really closely at my bank account. I saw every single payment I'd made for them, every contract I'd signed on their behalf. Something inside me just broke. I was calm, surprisingly calm, as I started making those calls. I knew the venue owner not personally, but through a mutual friend. It was easy, really. A couple of polite emails, a wire transfer, and bam, I owned their whole wedding date. They had no clue. I never said a word. At first, I didn't plan to do anything. I figured I'd just let it be, get my money back, wish them well, and walk away. But then that phone call happened. They were so blunt, so nonchalant about me being a problem that changed everything. I didn't just want out, I wanted them to feel it. So I spent the next few days quietly picking apart their wedding plans, piece by piece. I canceled the flowers, pulled back the catering deposits wherever I could. I even called the DJ, a guy I knew from high school. "Change of plans," I told him, real simple. "They don't need you anymore." Every time I hit cancel or withdraw, a little more of that hurt drained out of me, replaced by something colder, harder. It wasn't revenge, not like some dramatic screaming match. It was just making things right, setting things straight. Of course, at first, nothing changed. Their family group chat went on, full of updates about flowers and dresses and showers, not a single mention of me. I'd have sworn they'd wiped me off the map, honestly. But there was this one last thing, something I couldn't control. the wedding place itself. The contract was all messed up. Everything was still booked, paid for, and ready to roll. They didn't need to confirm anything until a week before the big day. If they didn't, bam, the venue was off limits. No access, no money back, no wedding, nothing. So I set a reminder for the absolute last day I could cancel the whole thing. I put a big, bright red circle around it on my calendar. Until then, I just waited. I worked. Kept my head down. But inside, this pressure, this tension, it was building and building. Because I knew when they found out the truth, it wouldn't be pretty. It was gonna be a total disaster, and they were clueless. That wedding week crept up like a slow-moving storm. I stayed quiet, ignoring the few family members who texted, those fake, hope you're okay messages. I knew what they really meant. Hope you're not gonna cause a huge mess. I wasn't. Not in the way they were scared of anyway. The night before the deadline, there I was again, back on my couch, same spot as weeks before, staring at my laptop. My finger hovered over that confirmation button. One click and the whole thing would come crashing down. I leaned back, closed my eyes for a second, and just thought about everything. That smirk of Emma's, my mom's voice laced with pure, unadulterated disapproval. I'd spent years as the second choice, the ATM, the nobody, but then I blinked, gave a little smile, and clicked. The confirmation message flashed up. Venue reservation gone, no access, no refund. And that's when the waiting game began. That night I went to sleep lighter than I'd felt in ages. The best part hadn't even started yet, but it was around 2 a.m. The wedding morning arrived, crystal clear and blindingly sunny, the kind of day where the sun seems way too happy, completely clueless about the mess about to unfold. I got up early, not because I had to, but because I actually wanted to be awake. For everything. I took my time making breakfast, channel surfed, and just waited. Meanwhile, at the country club, things were blowing up. I could picture it all. The florist showing up with a truckload of flowers and finding the gates locked, the photographer standing around, camera bag hanging, texting Emma like crazy, guests starting to arrive, shiny cars pulling up to an empty parking lot, all dressed up with nowhere to go, the confused chatter turning to anger and disbelief. Around 10 in the morning, my aunt texted, "Josh, are you on your way? There's a problem." I didn't answer, just tossed my phone face down on the coffee table. 5 minutes later, another text, this time from Emma herself. "Where are you? The place is locked up tight. Mom thinks you might know something. Call me like right now." I took a sip of my coffee. Then another buzz. My dad, my cousin, a couple more aunts. The family group chat was blowing up. My phone was like a blinking Christmas tree, each message more frantic than the last. Seems the country club folks had already let everyone know the booking was off. No reservation, no event planned, and yeah, no backup. At 11 on the dot, my mom called. Not a text, a call. That's when I knew things were bad. I let it ring the first time, and then again, and then again. It wasn't until the fourth time that I finally answered, hitting speaker and leaning back in my chair, totally relaxed like I had all the time in the world. "Josh," she practically yelled the second the phone connected. "Where are you? You need to get down here now. They're saying we don't have a venue. This has to be a mistake. You took care of the money stuff, right?" Her voice wasn't the usual lecturing tone. It was shaky, panicked, desperate. It almost made me chuckle, almost. I cleared my throat. "No mistake, Mom." There was a beat of silence like she couldn't believe it, then she lost it. "What do you mean, no mistake? Are you actually telling me you sabotaged your own sister's wedding?" I tilted my head, smiling even though she couldn't see me. "Funny," I said, easy as you please. "You're the one who told me not to mess things up for her." "I'm just doing exactly what you wanted." Wow, that shriek. I practically had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You ungrateful little brat, after all we've done for you, all the money." I just let her go on and on, barely listening. It was all such a bunch of garbage, the hypocrisy just oozing from every word. "After everything we've done?" Yeah, right, like decades of being ignored and used financially were some kind of gift. When she finally stopped to catch her breath, I spoke real calmly. "The place is in my name, didn't you think to check?" "You have to fix this, Josh," she screeched. "Call them, pay whatever it takes, get it back." I chuckled quietly. "Not my problem anymore, have a nice day, Mom." And then I hung up. For a second, I just sat there, looking at my phone and feeling nothing. No regrets, no apologies, just this weird calm, a kind of peace almost. The messages started flooding in. My sister, she was sending these raging, barely legible texts. My dad, threats plain and simple. Even my grandma, the one good adult I had, she texted, "Please come, please make this right." But there was nothing to make right at that point. Later, I heard from this cousin, and they thought the whole thing was hilarious. They tried to find another place, but everything was booked. Wedding season, of course. No one could squeeze them in last minute, even with cash to burn. People hung around the country club parking lot for ages before finally, kind of awkwardly, heading off. Emma's dream wedding. the one she'd been showing off on Instagram and Pinterest for a whole year, ended up being a pathetic, soggy lunch at some fast food place. No flowers, no fancy music, no pretty pictures at sunset. Just sad ham sandwiches and a whole lot of anger. Emma totally lost it, of course. She was screaming and crying, tossing her bouquet across the parking lot, yelling at everyone, even me, even though I wasn't even there to hear it, about how they'd ruined her life. I wish I could say I felt like a superhero, walking away from a huge explosion in slow motion. But nope, all I felt was free. This huge weight lifted off my shoulders. That constant worry, was I good enough? Helpful enough, supportive enough? It just vanished. They'd shown me exactly how they felt, and for the first time I believed it. I let myself believe them. That night, as the sun went down and my phone finally quieted down, I sat on my little balcony with a drink and watched the sky turn pink. Somewhere, my family was probably still picking up the pieces of their perfect day, probably blaming me, hating me, but it didn't matter. For the first time ever, I wasn't trying to get their approval. I wasn't chasing anything at all. I was done. Or so I thought, anyway. The knock on the door made me stop dead, my hand halfway to my mouth with the bottle. I set it down slow, my heart hammering away in my chest. I just stood there for a sec, staring at the door like if I concentrated hard enough, it'd vanish. Then another knock, this one louder and a voice muffled but familiar after all these years. "Josh, it's Grandma. Please, honey." I unlocked the door. I just stood there blinking. Of all the people I figured wouldn't show up after the wedding disaster, Grandma was the absolute last. She was the only one who ever made me feel seen, like I actually mattered and wasn't just some crummy shadow compared to Emma's perfect life. But still I was wary. My fingers hovered over the deadbolt, not sure. Was this a setup, a pity party? The third knock was softer, like she was exhausted. "Please," she repeated. Against my better judgment, I swung the door open. There was Grandma, wrapped in a light sweater, holding a sad, flimsy plastic container with what looked like homemade cookies. Her hair was a little more frazzled than usual, her lipstick was smeared, and her eyes, they looked empty, like she hadn't slept in days. "Hi, sweetheart," she said quietly, trying for a smile that didn't quite work. I stepped back, not saying anything, and let her in. She shuffled into my living room, looking around like she didn't even know where she was, even though she'd been here a couple times before. She put the cookies down on the coffee table like she was trying to make peace, then her hands started twisting together, all nervous. We just stood there for a minute, super awkward, that cheap clock on the wall ticking away. Finally, she mumbled, "I'm sorry." I almost laughed, it was so weird. Of all the people who messed up today, she was the only one who didn't owe me an apology, and yet she was the only one brave enough to say it. I said, all stiff and awkward, "You didn't do anything." Her voice cracked a little when she said, "I didn't stop it either. I should have. A long time ago, when they started treating you like a piggy bank instead of their son, when they made you feel like you had to fight for a seat at the table." She kind of slumped onto the couch, like the whole thing had finally gotten too heavy. I saw it all happening. I kept telling myself it wasn't my place to get involved, but it was. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to just smooth things over, make it easier on her. But another part, this angry part I didn't even know was still there, wanted to yell, "Where were you all those years?" So I just sat down and kept quiet. She played with the bottom of her sweater for a bit, then looked at me, all teary-eyed. She whispered, "They're blaming you, saying you're petty, immature, that you ruined Emma's wedding just to be mean." I scoffed to myself. Naturally. Why own up to anything when you can just blame the same person you've blamed for ages? But she went on, her tone getting a little tougher. I told them the actual truth. I said if they really wanted to know who messed up Emma's big day, they should look in the mirror. I just stared at her, totally shocked. A sad little smile played on her lips. They didn't like that one bit. I couldn't help it. A quick, forced chuckle slipped out. Yeah, I figured they didn't. For the first time since all this drama began, some of the pressure in my chest let up. Just a tiny bit, just enough to matter. "I'm not here to make you go back," she said softly. "I'm not here to make you feel guilty or plead with you to fix things. I needed you to know you're not losing it, and you're not by yourself." The genuine emotion in her voice kind of broke me. I quickly looked away, blinking back tears. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that until it hit me like a punch to the gut. Grandma stood up, smoothing down her sweater. "I'll leave you to it," she said, gesturing toward the cookies. "Thought you could use something sweet today, even if everything else has gone south." She started for the door, and for a second I almost just let her leave without saying anything. Almost. "Grandma," I said, my voice rougher than I wanted. She turned back, her hand on the doorknob. "Thank you," I said, plain and simple. Her eyes softened. "Anytime, sweetheart." And then she was gone. After everything, I just sat there, gazing at that closed door, the cookies I hadn't touched, and the way the sun was painting the walls orange. I was supposed to feel good, free, and honestly, I did. But there was something else, too, a feeling that was slowly building up inside me. This wasn't finished, not even close, because the texts and voicemails just wouldn't quit. My phone buzzed again on the table, kind of shaking against the wood. I looked, it was Emma this time, and what she sent made me freeze. "You think you've won? Just wait. You have no idea what you've started." I stared at that message from Emma for a good long while. "You think you've won? Just wait. You have no idea what you've started." It was a threat, plain and simple. A cheesy one, really the kind you'd expect from some spoiled kid who always got their way. But there was something about it that bothered me. The part of me that had learned to expect the unexpected from my family knew better than to ignore it. Still, I didn't reply. I just shut my phone off and put it face down. I wasn't going to get sucked into their stuff. For a few days, it was almost quiet. I didn't hear a thing. Not from my mom, not from Emma, not even from my dad, who usually jumped in right away when things went sideways. I went to work, hit the gym, and then made dinner in my tiny kitchen, the one with the wonky cabinet door. It was good, though. Peaceful. Almost felt like things were okay. But things with my family, they never stay that way. It all kicked off with the social media stuff. At first, it was pretty vague. Emma would post these cryptic Instagram stories about being betrayed and having a fake family with these moody black and white selfies. My mom would put up these long Facebook posts about spoiled kids who ruin everything good because they're jealous, not tagging anyone but making sure half the family would see them. Just these little jabs into the dark, hoping to hurt someone. I didn't pay any mind. Then the phone calls started, but not to me. They knew I wasn't answering, so they called my job. Someone anonymously told HR that I was doing something wrong. They said I'd stolen money, that I couldn't be trusted, that I was unstable. Crazy stuff that didn't stick, but it forced my boss to do this embarrassing check-in with me just to cover their bases. Thankfully, my boss, Carla, who doesn't mess around, saw right through it. "Family drama?" she asked dryly after we went through everything. I nodded and I felt this unexpected wave of shame. Carla just shrugged. "Happens all the time." She said, "As long as the servers stay up and you don't chuck a chair through a window, we're good." I could have hugged her. Instead, I just mumbled a thank you and went back to work. But it wasn't just my job they went after. They went after everything. My apartment manager slapped me with a notice, claiming I was running some illegal operation out of my place. Then the gym I went to started getting crank calls, people wanting to cancel my membership. And my Amazon got hacked, nothing huge, just someone trying to buy stuff with my card, but still a major pain. It was all meant to pressure me, to make me cave and apologize. But I wouldn't budge. Honestly, it just made me more stubborn. A couple weeks after the wedding I heard another knock. This time, I peeked through the peephole. My dad, I froze, not really from fear, but seeing him there, arms crossed, jaw tight, brought back a flood of memories, slamming doors, quiet disapproval, that constant feeling of never measuring up. I cracked the door, my foot jammed behind it, ready to slam it shut. "What's up?" I asked, trying to sound indifferent. He got right to it. "You're going to fix this," he said. I let out a harsh, empty laugh. "Fix what?" "Your inability to raise decent people." His face contorted, and for a split second I thought he might swing at me. He didn't. He just shook his head, a nasty little smile on his face. "You think you're better than us now? You're pathetic, Josh, just a bitter little kid who couldn't handle seeing his sister happy." I leaned against the door frame, trying to look relaxed. "Funny, from my perspective, Emma's the one who's bitter and you're just sad." My hands clenched, wanting to lash out, but I stopped myself. "You owe this family," he spat. I whispered back, "I owe you nothing." We just glared at each other, the air thick, heavy, like it was pushing me down. Then he did something I didn't see coming. He let out this awful, nasty laugh. "You think this is over?" he sneered. "You think you can just leave and pretend we don't matter?" He went on. "You'll be back, crawling back, people like you always are, when you're by yourself, when you're broke, when nobody wants you. You'll remember you had a family once and you threw it away." I smiled, a real smile, a small one. "No," I said. "I had a weight and I put it down." I slammed the door in his face. He hammered on it, yelled something I couldn't make out, furious. But I didn't open it. I just turned and let him scream until he was done. Finally, he left, and with him something else was gone, too, the final connection, the last bit of guilt, the last lie that I owed them anything. The aftermath was a mess, naturally. Without me picking up the tab, the country club sued my folks for breaking their contract. Seems they'd signed some stuff without looking close enough. They were on the hook for a ton of money they didn't have. Emma tried to sue me personally for causing her emotional stress, but every lawyer she talked to thought it was hilarious. Turns out, being a jerk isn't illegal. The news spread. My whole extended family, all those cousins and second cousins who'd always secretly resented my family, started distancing themselves. Holidays became super uncomfortable, you know. Invitations just stopped coming. My parents' perfect image, poof, gone. It all fell apart faster than a sandcastle in a wave. They tried to fix things, of course. More lies, more made-up stories, but it was no use. Way too many people had seen the truth, so I got out of there. I didn't move far, just a different part of town, but far enough they couldn't easily find me. I got a new phone number and blocked them on everything. It was like a fresh start. I kept my job and even got a promotion. Carla, my friend, said it was a prize for surviving that crazy family drama. I made new friends, real friends who liked me for who I am, not what I could do for them. Grandma and I stayed close. She'd come over for coffee every week, and sometimes we just sat there quietly together. Other times we'd talk about everything and nothing. She apologized a bunch at first, but eventually I made her stop. It wasn't about pointing fingers anymore. It was about choosing the people I wanted in my life. One day, a few months after the whole mess went down, she brought over this old, beat-up photo album. Inside were pictures I barely remembered: birthdays, school plays, family vacations. And in every single one, I saw the same thing: a little boy desperately trying to get love from people who just didn't really see him. I closed the album and put it down. Grandma whispered, "I see you, honey," and that's when it finally clicked. It wasn't all sunshine and roses, I'm not gonna lie. There were nights, the city lights painting stripes across my window, everything deathly quiet. Those were tough. I'd miss things, sure, but then I'd remember what I'd won: my independence, my self-worth, a real sense of calm, and the most important thing, knowing deep down that I'd never, ever let anyone treat me like I was nothing again. Sometimes you lose something and it turns out to be a blessing in disguise. Leaving was the absolute best decision of my entire life.